Okay, everybody. So I'm assuming everyone can hear me. My name is Joe Amditas. I'm Associate Director here at the Center for Cooperative Media. And this is a training that we are going to be doing. It's a webinar with Gavin Rozzi and OC Radio Live. Is OC Radio Live? I keep saying it wrong. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, but that's your other, right? Yeah. So this is going to be on OPRAmachine, and we are recording this for posterity, and we will be sharing the recording after the webinar is over. Without further ado, I will go ahead and I will be turning it over to Gavin shortly. In the meantime, I'm going to be sort of corralling the folks who are unable to join or are having issues, but fear not if you just joined. If you are on the phone, you're welcome to stay. There are slides that we're going to be screen sharing with the group. You're more than welcome to keep listening on the phone, although you will be robbed of some of the value as there will be a visual component to this webinar. So if you are on the phone and you would like to join via computer, you can go back to the Eventbrite. There is a URL in the Eventbrite listing there in the description. You should be able to open that. For those of you who are on the call and did not hear my earlier instructions, there's a chat that you can click on. If you hover your mouse over your screen, you should see a chat icon in the bottom row there. Click that and a window or a panel should open up on the right side, and you will be able to discuss or ask questions. I'm going to leave everyone muted for now because just to avoid some confusion and background noise, but there are little emoticons or indicators that you can use, such as yes, no, go slower, go faster, and many more actually, that allow you to either raise your hand or indicate some kind of support, approval, or question. So again, without further ado, Gavin, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and I will mute myself, and you can take it from here. And if anybody at this moment cannot see the screen share, there should be a slide up using OPRAmachine to file public records requests without the hassle. If you are having issues, I will be monitoring the chat so that you can I can address your issues as we go forward without interrupting the flow. All right, and with that, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you, Joe. Thank you to the Center for putting this event together today. It's a pleasure to be here. This is our event using OPRAmachine to file public records requests without the hassle. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're here today to talk about transparency and how we can achieve it through my platform, OPRAmachine.com. Now, if anybody here is already familiar with the public records request process in New Jersey or filing OPRA requests, you know that sometimes it can be frustrating to actually get what you're asking for in the first place. A lot of the times it can be a back and forth as far as getting clarification from the agencies and the old way of doing OPRA with paper forms. So we're going to talk about how we can streamline and modernize that using OPRAmachine. So OPRAmachine is a website that I created in October of 2017, and it is a tool geared towards simplifying the public records acquisition and publication process for government agencies in New Jersey. It allows users to send, track, and share public records requests. And the thing that makes OPRAmachine different is that we publish everything from the initial request to the full chain of correspondence that resulted in the release or denial of release of that document from the government agency. And that's all being tracked, and it's all being entered into our database, which is then public for anybody else to use online. We're built on the premise that everything should be public. These are public records, and as it's been said before, public records are public trust. So we are publishing everything online, and this is proving to be a real resource for citizens, journalists, and many of the other stakeholders that we're going to be getting into today. It helps both individual users to get their answer that they're looking for with their request, but the difference is now everybody will have access to that answer as well. We're hosting the documents on our server, so instead of the public agency having to deal with multiple individual requests from a user, once one person requests something once, now with our system, an infinite number of people can benefit from that and make use of that. So we're going to take a look here at the New Jersey Open Public Records Act. This is actually the OPRA law. It applies to requests that are made not just through our service, through OPRAmachine, but if you were to do this directly, you would have the same basic set of rights wherever you go in terms of these government agencies. So some of these rights, you're allowed to get any record that is made, maintained, kept on file, or received in the course of business. We actually have a separate documentation mini website for OPRAmachine that answers a lot of frequently asked questions. And that's what covers a lot of the more in-depth stuff as far as the specific exemptions go and where certain limits are set. The custodian must approve or deny your request in terms of granting access or requesting an extension. They have to acknowledge it within 7 business days. You might not get the records that you're looking for by the end of those 7 business days, maybe if you're lucky, but you have to at least get that acknowledgement or a legally sufficient response within that time period. And then lastly, something that's probably one of the most important rights that you have, both as a citizen and as a journalist under OPRA, is the right to challenge requests that are denied in New Jersey Superior Court, or if you like waiting for 2 years, you can do it at the GRC, the New Jersey Government Records Council. It's almost always going to be faster if you take an attorney and go to Superior Court, and then that's when you can take advantage of the legal fee shifting provision of. Sorry, it seems like I got muted here. Can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just a minor technical difficulty. So citizens submit their OPRA request. The public agency responds or the request gets denied. There's only a certain amount of things that can happen there. And then they have the right to challenge it if they so choose. So OPRAmachine, since October 2017, has covered all 565 municipalities in New Jersey. And that's both the municipal governments as well as school boards, counties, MUAs, housing authorities, other entities. All of these state and local government entities that New Jersey residents come into contact with on a day-to-day basis, they are all within our comprehensive database and archive. So we're going to be talking about in this presentation how you, as a journalist, as a citizen, or anybody that's interested in really taking advantage of the public records research and request process here, OPRAmachine is really something that allows us to put the power of the Open Public Records Act and really bring it up to speed in terms of the 21st century and getting rid of and getting away from these paper forms or having to go in person or dealing with fax machines or paying per page for copy fees, because in 99% of the scenarios, records that you request through OPRAmachine and receive electronically, you won't end up being charged a per page copy fee. Now, there may be some exceptions and outliers to that case as far as fees go. But again, you know, that's really outside the scope of today's presentation, at least. So some of the key new features that our platform is bringing to the paradigm of public records requests. The new features that we have is you're able to follow public records requests by town, by keyword. There's an advanced search of requests by their state, by their responses that they've received, and as well as all sorts of other variables that we're able to sort this through. And we're going to get into some of the more powerful functionality of that. So by the numbers, since October 2017, when OPRAmachine went live and became available to the public, we have indexed 927 government agencies of all levels of New Jersey state and local government. As of today, we have processed 2,341 OPRA requests that were sent to these government agencies. And in that time period, we have amassed a database of 10 gigabytes of public documents and data that is currently being hosted on our server. And that is a number. In a week from now, these numbers will already be outdated, and we'll have even more as this site really continues to grow with each new request that we receive. So how does this all work? So we're going to get into a little bit of the architecture of the site and how it is built in a way that allows these requests to be tracked and published in the manner that we do them. So the magic happens by our system assigns every OPRA request a unique ID, this little string of gibberish here. There's no need to memorize any of these or for you to have to deal with any of these directly because this is all just handled transparently on our end. And this tracking ID is used to just generate an email address. So it all gets reduced down to email when our requests are sent out to government agencies. So what happens is this unique identifier is embedded into the email address, and then it's just sent along like any other email to this government agency. So what happens is this ID allows our software to read it in when the email is sent and replied to by the government agencies, and it allows us to do time tracking, track the status of the OPRA request, whether it's responded to within the legally required time frames, and all of that good stuff. And it's all done just through this special form of email that we're sending. And our database of those 927 government agencies includes the email addresses for where those requests are delivered to. So we automate and get rid of a large portion of the OPRA request process just from the outset without even getting into some more of the advanced functionality. And I want to just give a little mention to the benefit that this has for the other side of the equation for government agencies. You see what ends up happening in some towns. Some of these towns are adopting their own proprietary OPRA portals where they just have something on their website that's a form. And if you look at like the vendor history reports for this, they're spending quite a bit of money to third-party vendors to pay for their software and then the training for their staff. What OPRAmachine is able to do is we're putting a brand new web interface on top of existing technologies like email. So the end result of that equation is it ends up being something that is a lot less costly to implement for government agencies. They don't have to do anything special. It really is just as simple as them hitting reply to the OPRA request that they receive in their inbox. And we think there's real value in that proposition, and that simplicity of integration is something that makes our platform stand out compared to some of these other proprietary solutions that you see being adopted. So we're going to take a look at how you can file a request if you want to do your own OPRA request. And it's as simple as just selecting the government agency that you'd like to send your request to from our directory. And I'm just going to go to that right here. And you can go, and I'm going to make a new tab for this so we can jump back to it. But it's just a matter of we have all of our public entities in the OPRAmachine database. There's different levels that they're classified under. We have state agencies, county governments, or you can classify by county. So if you want to see every MUA just in Camden County or Ocean County or any of these other types of government entities. So for education, for example, you could have a local and regional board of education, charter schools, county colleges, even fire districts and other places. And if you really wanted to, if you were a more advanced user, we have an option right here on the down in the corner of the site right here, where you can download a CSV data file, a spreadsheet, that's actually going to show a list of all 927 government agencies that we have here in the OPRAmachine database. So there's a lot of more granular and broad levels that you can use to analyze this data. So the process is relatively simple. Our site currently limits you to filing 7 requests per day. That's for us to cut down on spam or any issues like that. We do make special exceptions if you're a researcher or you're doing a bigger project and you can show us a reason why you would have a need for more than that limit of requests. And then finally, the process shifts to waiting for a response from the government agency and following up as needed. Our software, as soon as we receive the response, a notification will go out to your email address. And what's really convenient is compared to if you were just sending OPRA requests directly via email, our advantage is our system is running and tracking the time frame for each request. So it'll send you varying levels of notifications and alerts to kind of keep you posted as your request receives responses, and also making sure that you classify them. So we're going to be getting into classifying OPRA requests and some of the different states that your requests might go through. One quick side note is when it comes to whistleblowers and anonymous sources that want to request something, but they might be somebody that might be in a politically compromising position, or they might fear retaliation, etc. We do provide a mechanism for sending anonymous OPRA requests through OPRAmachine. You can register an account and you don't have to use your real name. And it's important to note that we never publish your real email address, your direct Gmail or Hotmail address. That is always kept private in our database. And the only thing that people from either the public or a government agency will see is the actual unique OPRAmachine requests email address, and not your actual email. So we think this is the most foolproof way of doing an anonymous request, because theoretically under the existing OPRA law, you do have the right to submit a request anonymously, but you start getting into some practicality concerns with respect to preserving that anonymity, because how are you logically supposed to follow up with a government agency to pick up those records? And how are you going to actually pick them up anonymously if you have to show up in person to pick them up? Because there's cameras, there's all sorts of scenarios like that. Without getting into any direct comments regarding sources and methods, I can say that with my work doing investigative journalism in Ocean County, I have seen a completely new paradigm of journalism and leads for stories develop this way, because we'll have some people that are whistleblowers that I've worked with on previous stories that will register an account on OPRAmachine, and they'll say, hey, Gavin, instead of leaking me a document, they'll file a request for that document on that anonymous account and then forward me the documents. And then I can decide if there's news value in moving forward with that story. So this is something that we're really hoping to get into the hands of whistleblowers and journalists. It kind of almost touches on to some of the work that Jeff and I have done with jerseyleaks.org for the leaked document submission. So I do want to touch on how anonymous requests, this is a trend that we've been seeing, and we think there's definitely value in this for individuals that might have a need either for work or professional reasons or for whatever else to not have their identity publicized and be out on the website this way. So moving on, this is an example of one of the notifications you'll receive when you file a request through OPRAmachine.com. You'll get an email that just says new response to your OPRA request and then a link to go view it. And these are the types of automated transactional emails that you'll get from our service. And people have told me that these have been helpful to keep things organized, even for myself, because I used to do OPRA requests directly through email, and everybody's getting so many emails these days. It's easy for something to go by the wayside and just get completely caught in the piles of junk people will receive. So that's one of the reasons OPRAmachine helps keep things a little bit more organized and tidy. So now when you actually receive a response from the government agency for your particular request, the next step in the process on our site is to classify them. Classifying OPRA requests is basically how our site continues to get fed with new data about the status of OPRA requests. So we can tell we are tracking all of the timelines for responses. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it is a requirement that you receive an acknowledgement or a response within 7 business days of making that original request. So this is where we're going to have a lot more stuff coming down the line, where we're actually going to be comparing on the basis of are these public agencies replying to public records requests in an acceptable time period? You know, to what extent do they vary in their compliance with the law? And this is where a tool like OPRAmachine really will shine for comparative research. So classifying requests, they'll run the gamut of, you know, they could be refusing to answer the request. There could be a technical problem that's just genuinely preventing it from going through. And what will happen is our users will go in, they'll get that little survey when they open up their response to the request, and we're going to go through all the different states a request can move through as it gets tracked through our system. So obviously successful means you got everything you're looking for. Partially successful means you got most or some of what you were looking to get. Gone postal will be if they reply directly through paper mail or off the site somehow. And we have different mechanisms of getting documents back into our database after, if it can be adapted for mail-based requests or faxed requests, etc. And then finally, we have the unsuccessful request states: delivery error, which we discussed, information not held if the government agency says that they do not have the information, and then finally refusal and long overdue. So each one of these icons that you see for different request states in a later section of this presentation, we're going to cover, where you can filter out through our whole archive of public records. You can see just the requests that were refused. You can see just the requests where they said they didn't have the information. So in using these states to compare OPRA requests, it allows you to really use this as a research tool to gain some insight and start looking at some of the trends based on what these requests have in common. So now we're going to start getting into some of the more advanced features of OPRAmachine and how you can use these advanced features. So one of the most powerful things about the site is the mechanism that it provides for tracking OPRA requests. This is something that can be applied not only to your own OPRA request. You're going to get notifications and tracking like we showed you for your own request by default, but you can follow OPRA requests from specific public entities and government agencies. You can track particular keywords. You can track, I already have a few people. I have a few people that track just my OPRA requests, and every time I do a new OPRA request, they get an email every night with a link to what that document was. So we're really, once we've put this platform out there, it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and it's been exciting to see how our users are building upon the work that we do. And the way our software works is every day you'll get a daily digest tracking email. We try not to overwhelm you too much with emails, but every day, once per day, you'll get a tracking email with updates on all of the topics that you've chosen to follow. And our interface makes it really simple for doing this. I'm just going to pull up the OPRAmachine site just so people can get an idea of it. But we're just going to look at a few of the requests here. And I could type in something like, say, police to get just police records that are requested. And you can see here I could filter all requests, successful, unsuccessful, and that's, again, based on the request state. But we have this nice little button right here to the right, and that's where follow. So now you can track and get alerts anytime there's new police records that appear in our database just through that. And we also offer that same data through RSS feeds, and we're going to cover that a little bit more later in the presentation as well. So the application for journalists, if you are a journalist or a reporter covering local stories, this is really an opportunity to start putting our data to work for you. So for example, if we were to go to a particular municipality, for example, so let's just say Alpha Borough, that's been one of our more active municipalities recently up in Warren County. If you were a reporter covering this municipality, you might want to go up here and follow them, and then now you'll get notified every time someone does an OPRA request to this borough, and you'll have a chance to see what that request is. So you could follow just the towns that you're interested, just the government departments you're interested in. And for journalists, the value proposition is if you're already busy enough trying to juggle multiple stories, OPRAmachine can save you time by minimizing the hassle of doing your own public records requests. And then, in a little bit of serendipity, you can use the tool to basically go and pull in new leads for stories, new ideas, see what other people are onto, and see if this might be something you'd be able to work into your own research. It really, one of the things that really has just continued to impress me since OPRAmachine was put out for public use was how somebody will see somebody else's request, they'll adapt the language, they'll benefit from reading somebody else's request, and just by bringing a little bit more sunshine and transparency into the OPRA request process, it's definitely heartening to see how it has enhanced the quality of reporting that a lot of our journalist partners and content partners have been able to put out. So another example is, this is kind of going into what we've talked about. Many of the people that have been using our site and registering for new accounts that we've been looking in terms of trends in user data are not actually even filing new requests themselves. They're just going and getting tracking updates as somebody else's request progresses. In Lacey Township, we had a contentious issue involving our Board of Education earlier in the spring, and we had a lot of people that were just concerned parents that were interested in stuff that was going on at the school board, but they might not necessarily have had time to go to the meetings and be involved themselves. They got notifications and alerts every time there were new documents OPRA'd, and they were able to really participate in the democratic process that way. By way of making those requests and using it to do their research into these issues. So we're going to start looking at, again, some more of the advanced research features of OPRAmachine and some of the outcomes of that and how you can replicate that on the site yourself. Our advanced search functionality is something that really helps you to filter and filter down these documents to something that's just the specific thing you're looking for. We have quite a bit, over 10 gigabytes of Word documents, PDF files, Excel spreadsheets, CSV files. And when you run a search through OPRAmachine, it's searching both the bodies of the requests themselves and the responses that are received by government agencies, in addition to the actual bodies of the metadata surrounded with the documents themselves. So if you're a numbers guy and you're doing statistics, you might want to only see CSV or Excel files that would have the information relative to stuff that you're researching statistically. If you're looking for something a little bit more qualitative, we have PDF files, doc files. There's so many different dimensions that you can classify this on. You can get just CSV or Excel files from a certain time period. You can get just Excel files from specific government agencies or public bodies. There's a lot of different avenues you can go down through this. So this is just a screenshot here of the advanced search page. If you're following along at home or if you're loading these slides up, you can just click this link and you can go to OPRAmachine.com/advanced search to access the advanced search interface here. And this shows you all the different avenues you can classify them, by user, by variety, by status. And this is something, if you were a journalist or you're an investigator really digging through a complex story, you can search specific timelines of individuals that are named in documents, as well as when those documents were requested or generated. So there's really some powerful features in that. So I saved some examples here in the presentation of advanced search queries that I already built for this presentation. So one common record that people always request is salaries. So public employee salaries and payroll records. I tend to like it better when public agencies give them to you in an Excel spreadsheet, because then you could do a little bit more manipulation with it and comparison. So I did a little search here where I only want to see results that are responsive to the search term salary, but then you see we have this condition in the search, file type : XLSX. So this will show us now there's only 5 OPRA requests where they responded with an XLSX. But now if we just go to XLS, which is the older Excel file format, we're probably going to get, we got 14 requests instead of 5. So in a way, that also just taught us that those agencies are a little bit behind on the version of Microsoft Office that they're using. So just a little side note. And then we also have that for PDF files. And you can see just PDF files and classify them along that format. Another really powerful feature that we've been testing, we've been doing this in closed beta with some limited journalistic organizations that we've chosen to partner with, and that's our batch request feature. Our batch OPRA request feature takes the OPRA request process that we've already simplified through OPRAmachine, and this takes it to a whole different level, because now what we're able to do is take the exact same OPRA request and send it to as many government agencies as we want, each one of those requests being sent with a unique tracking ID, tracking the time, and also giving it a page to publish it online. This is something that really is going to enable comparative research by journalists, either on a statewide level, on a countywide level, and it's something that it's going to be a part of additional features that we're going to be adding to our professional tier of the site that we're going to be covering later in the presentation. And right now, this feature is a little bit limited. You can't just go on and do this. It's something we are manually enabling for people that we've already seen have had a history of making good requests, just because we don't want to have people using it for their first time, making a mistake, and then sending it out to every municipality in a given county and creating issues that way. So let's get into batch requests and see some of the examples. So these are all different links to batch requests that I have done using OPRAmachine. My favorite one is actually one of the last ones here for cell site simulators. I'm sorry, that was the wrong one. There was an issue with the link. So this link here is for charter school employee payroll records. So we did a batch request to all of these different charter schools across New Jersey to see how they compare to each other for employee payroll. And this is something I was actually asked to do this by somebody that I knew that their issue was education. So they would have this information up here on OPRAmachine. And you can see there's the different statuses. Some we had delivery errors that are just inevitable that we can't get around and we'll have to rectify at a later date. Some were successful, some are still overdue and haven't been answered. I probably won't get an answer from this particular school because this is all the way from back in June. But the real power of this is now with the effort it took to do one request. Here we just did 7 requests. Here in Ocean County, we did a request for police use of force reports. This was the very first batch request that we processed through OPRAmachine. It was sent out on October 30th. And this went out to almost every municipality in Ocean County. And I want to do a comparison of their police use of force reports to see the different use of force incidents in this 10-month period covered by this batch OPRA request. I want to see if this one, okay, so here's another request. Charlie Cradaville is a good friend of our site. He does a lot of work with OPRAmachine for his requests. He came to us with a proposal for a batch OPRA request to get the elected official salaries, benefits, and compensation for all of the municipalities in Middlesex County. And that was there were some very revealing details in that request. And you can see he wrote out this very detailed request showing, what he was looking for through each municipality. This was sent out, and then OPRAmachine takes care of everything from processing all the responses to eventually notifying you that your request got a response. So batch OPRA requests are something that really sets OPRAmachine apart from other types of public records websites. And this is something that really is magnifying our public records request power to really put the power of the Open Public Records Act to work for our users and really allow some really complex OPRA request-driven stories to be done by journalists. So we're going to start taking a look at the impact of OPRAmachine, and we've already started looking at some of the individual cases of impacts, but what we've been seeing in just under a year, we're going to be coming up on 1 year of having the site operational on a statewide level. 1 year later, we're seeing that more people across the state are learning about public records and OPRA. They're being exposed to it for the first time through our site. People are able to take something that used to be hidden in closed government filing cabinets, paper correspondence, and stuff like that. And now we're opening this up and we're putting it online for everybody to see and make use of. And this is really, it speaks to the potential for the internet to serve as somewhat of a democratic commons and the digital public square where citizens are able to take these public records and they could use them for their campaign if they're advocating for a specific issue. They can use them if they're reporting or a story. And most importantly, sometimes we lose the original intent of a lot of these public records laws. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that citizens themselves are being served and can become more informed by way of OPRA and our platform. So again, this speaks to how we've used the platform to teach people how to do OPRA requests. We're going to be looking at a case study and some experiences that our administrator, our OPRAmachine administrator, Jeff Epstein, is also in the house with us today, and he's going to be sharing some of his experiences with that. And again, it speaks to our underlying premise of by publishing these requests and by putting more data out there, people can both get the answer to the request that they're looking to have answered, and with each request, we're contributing to the public knowledge of all of New Jersey. So I'm going to turn things over to our OPRAmachine administrator, Jeff Epstein. Jeff is the editor of Citizens Media TV. That is an independent media outlet out in Burlington County that does a lot of live streaming coverage of local government and campaign events. And Jeff has done a lot of work with us moderating our requests, helping with the operations of the site. And we're going to let him speak a little bit about his experiences. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Jeff. Thank you for joining us, Jeff.
I need to put this in for any reason? Or the microphone? Is this the microphone or is this the microphone?
Microphone.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Gavin, thank you very much for letting me be part of this and especially for being part of this amazing tool, this and Jersey Leaks. Yes, my organization is called Citizens Media TV, and I did investigative journalism for a good year. I'm not doing it currently. I'm doing more podcasting and interviewing. I'm also teaching modern monetary theory to people, introducing modern monetary theory to people. If you don't know it, please get to know it. So yes, I've been an administrator from the beginning of both OPRAmachine and Jersey Leaks. Before OPRAmachine, actually, let me make I want to emphasize something that Gavin was saying before, which is if you choose to be alerted, to be notified on requests, you're not just notified of when the request is made. You're notified in every single step. I believe that's true.
The whole process.
Every single step. So as soon as there's a response, you will get a notification of that response. As soon as they clarify for that response, you will get a notification of that clarification. And then finally, you will immediately get a notification of the document. It is a really powerful tool. So before OPRAmachine, the burden was really on the requester. So no matter how many times a document may have already been requested, you have to request it again because it's in someone's private email account, or you can't know that. So it is extraordinarily difficult to keep track of things. You have to manually keep track of your emails. If you need to challenge it in a court of law, then they need that entire email chain, which means that you have to make sure that you've stored it properly so you can give the entire chain to them. So it's a big burden on all the requesters. And sharing and publicizing and embedding documents, OPRA request documents into articles works fine, but it is a very manual chore to do so before OPRAmachine. And also you are privately communicating with custodians. So that's a different kind of relationship than what it is when you're doing it on OPRAmachine, because the second they respond, it is immediately publicly available. And so it just creates a different kind of atmosphere. So with OPRAmachine, I find that the burden is a lot less on the requester and a lot more on the agency, but in an appropriate way, because as number one, every step is public. And number two is that when they do requests and when they respond to your correspondence, everything's immediately put online. So that one document is now requested. And instead of having to have multiple requesters request those same documents over and over again, now they can just search for that document. So it eliminates redundancies, a lot of redundancy for custodians and for agencies. That is a great benefit. So keeping track of these things is now effortless. And so I don't have to manually keep track of all these correspondence in the documents. It is now effortless. It's just taken care of by OPRAmachine, and that opens up a world of opportunities. So for 4 months, I did investigative journalism with a school district in Ocean County. And there was a big, horrible roofing project with asbestos and just very bad stuff. And I actually, as an aside, Citizens Media TV was easily the most comprehensive coverage of this story, which I don't take as much of a compliment to me as more of a statement on the sad state of affairs of journalism in general, that someone like me would be, in that position. So I did a lot of requests at all levels of government for this story, many with the district, some federal, and all levels in between. And I made it a point of every request that I did to actually put it immediately on social media to share with the parents, not just the final document, but to show them what I was going for, to show them the process and my goal was to make people, see where I was going, not just wait until I got there and wrote a final article about it. And I feel like that was reasonably successful. Because as soon as they saw that link, they could create an alert themselves or keep track of that post, and they could see the request taking place step by step. And this also, for some parents, for some community members, but significantly the parents of the school, were actually learning how to do OPRA requests because these things were publicized. And I know I can think of at least 2 cases where people created OPRAmachine accounts to do OPRA requests, sort of inspired by my putting these things online, which is really a really good thing. But I want to emphasize that you can do OPRA requests outside manually in email. It does not require OPRAmachine itself. So before, with an article, I would get that document, I would put the document in the article, or the relevant part in the article, but I would also want them to have access to the entire chain to give them the proper full context. So I would have to put all the emails in the document onto, for example, Dropbox. I would have to create a link to that, get permission, public permission for that. And now that burden has completely been eliminated. So now what I can do instead is I can take just the relevant part of the document, the most relevant part, screenshot that, put that in the article, and everything else is just a simple link to the OPRA request. That is an extraordinary, that's probably the biggest benefit for me as a sort of former journalist. As a journalist, I find that to be the biggest benefit of OPRAmachine, that I can just link to the entire request and they can see the full context of the dialogue from the very beginning all the way through the final document. Actually, I'll just give Gavin was just talking about batch requests, and the one major batch request that I did is that I requested the election results from this most recent primary in June from all 21 counties, and that I wrote it once. Please give me the election results for your county. I just selected all 21 counties and sent submit, and it went immediately to all those places. And now I have 21 separate dialogues with those counties, which is really neat. So OPRAmachine has really forced agencies to up their game. There have been a lot of instances of sensitive information being revealed. There's a couple of users in particular who send user support requests saying, take this document down quick. There's social security numbers. There's other sensitive information revealed. So we have to take that down. And that it shows that you have to wonder of how much of that has happened in pre-OPRAmachine requests that these things were revealed, maybe to less consequence because it was only given to one person, but now it's given to the world immediately. So it really puts a lot of pressure on, in a good way, for custodians and for agencies to up their game to do better. So the final thing I want to say is that OPRAmachine is an extraordinary tool, and the software that it's based on is extraordinary as well. It's called Alvatelli. But there is a significant issue that I have experienced with Alvatelli, not OPRAmachine itself, but Alvatelli, the underlying technology. And that is an unusual situation that I noticed pushed the boundary of the software that it couldn't handle. And that was specifically that a custodian in this school district was let go, and then approximately a month later was brought back. So during that approximately month time, all of the requests were just out there lingering and still accumulating because this was such a dramatic incident that requests were still coming in. And I personally had 7 requests during that time. So when this custodian came back, he was completely overwhelmed and could not process what was going on. And unfortunately, Alvatelli makes it rather difficult to pick up if you haven't been part of the process from the very beginning. So there is no context, not enough context within each email that is sent from OPRAmachine, from Alvatelli, to allow someone that's starting from the middle to pick up. And so I lost a good month plus of time having to do each request again, one at a time, because if I sent them all out seven simultaneously, it again would have been exactly the same problem. So I just find that to be a significant flaw of the underlying technology, but that doesn't change the fact that overall it is an extraordinary piece of software. I'm going to pass it back to Gavin because he's going to talk about a specific technological solution that's going to actually alleviate a significant part of that. So thank you again, and I'm going to hand it back to Gavin.
Thank you, Jeff. And for all of our viewers back at home, I just want to invite anybody, if we have any questions, feel free to jump in throughout the presentation if you want to stop us. But we will be doing a designated Q&A portion at the end of the presentation as well.
So we do actually have one question first, and I've muted everyone so that they can't unmute accidentally. So there are options to raise your hand or send chat messages. One question that came in, it says, "This is a fascinating tool. Who's paying for it? It seems like a lot of work for anyone to do for free. Is there a charge?"
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So to be honest with you, I'm currently paying for it. I'm paying for all of the web hosting. We do have some expenses to run the actual Linux servers. We use a company out of New Jersey, and we're paying the full fee every month to host it. And eventually there will be some stuff as far as a professional version, which I actually have some slides on that we're going to jump into. So that's actually, that gives us a great segue into our next slides. But is there any other questions, Joe? Or are we good from there?
I don't see any in the chat. I know some of you folks are on the phone. I apologize. There's no way for me to indicate whether or not you want to ask a question. Other than that, you can log in. But if you are on your computer for this webinar, you can raise your hand, or you can use one of the emotes in the chat window to indicate whether or not you want to ask a question, or you can just leave it as text. But I guess for now, we'll move on. The thing I want to make sure is that, we blocked this off for an hour, so I want to make sure that folks do have time to jump in. So please let me know if you have one, and I'll interrupt Gavin and we'll go there. But he does have more material. We can go longer, and I believe there is plenty of time to go longer on my end. So if you folks are willing to stay on and engage, then by all means. But the majority of the bulk of the content that we wanted to get to you, the information we wanted to get to you, will be wrapped up in the next 15 minutes or so. So we'll continue, and I will continue to monitor the audience and make sure that there are no pending questions. And I will let you know, Gavin, with a chat message if that is the case. Okay?
All right. So moving on. Oh, okay. So moving on, we're taking a look at some of the stakeholders that have been using our platform in the year since we've been here. Obviously, journalists are our number one group of users. We have both traditional media journalists from larger daily publications, mainly in the South Jersey area, as well as some of the independent journalists from the various independent sites that are users. I see actually we have another question in the chat from Patrick, so I'll take this real quick. Patrick asks, how can we ensure that if a denial to a request sent is accurate? That's a little bit of a tough one because that's a question that kind of touches onto the realm of legal advice, and we need to be very careful in stating that anything that we say about the OPRA law is our personal opinion. Only a licensed New Jersey attorney can give you legal advice applicable to the facts of your specific situation. But that is a very valid concern, because if you are making a request and you get denied, it can definitely be a bit of a process to navigate that. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, I have sued both in Superior Court and I have gone to the GRC to challenge denials of OPRA requests. And it can be a bit of an arduous process, but there are, if you feel that your request was improperly denied, I would suggest you go and take some of the language that they might have sent you. Like if it was a specific exemption, like if they're saying this is a criminal investigatory record, we're not going to give it to you for this reason. Maybe look at other OPRA requests on our site and see if they were treated the same way. And that could be a good way of assessing if it was a valid denial or not. And then, of course, you could always contact an OPRA attorney if you do wish to pursue litigation. And, I've been represented by two excellent attorneys, and it's definitely a process that's doable with the right legal advice. So I see we also have another question here from Carla. This tool has been perfect and helped me get my hands on documents that were denied to me when I was an employee of a government agency. That's excellent. I'm glad to hear that. It's good to see the impact that this is making. So I'm just going to close back out of the chat and we'll get back into this here. But this list of stakeholders here are all individuals, the different groups of people that we've seen using our platform and making use of everything. And there's really many different use cases for OPRAmachine. So Jeff started to touch on this before, some of the challenges that we have encountered. Since this tool has been in development, I began working on OPRAmachine in December of 2016, and it took me till October of 2017 to iron out all the technical issues, because this is not just a regular website like a WordPress blog or something simple like that. This is an interactive web application, and if you're more technically inclined or a developer, we're running on the Ruby on Rails framework, which is an interactive framework for building web applications, and it allows us to control and have a lot of customization to the different aspects of the site. So the two major areas of difficulty that we face, we've had both technical and legal/moderation issues. So the technical challenges. In the beginning, it really was a struggle to ensure our servers didn't go down. In the first few months of our existence, I had to constantly try and scale our resources up to meet the demands and capacity. We really had some difficulties early on with just a large amount of people logging onto the site and then causing the server to just go down. Sometimes, what's still proving to be a bit of a concern for some clerks that are just not familiar with how our system works, they'll reply, if somebody submits multiple requests through OPRAmachine, they might end up replying to just one of those requests with all of the documents for all three requests, thinking that they're being helpful and combining everything into one email. But that ends up just creating some difficulties on our end, because now we have all these other requests that are being tracked, but then no documents or response. So it creates the impression that, something might be missing. And again, that speaks to educating and dealing with user technical support issues. We field calls. Our main Rozzi Media Group phone number, which we're going to have listed at the end. We have an option on our automated phone menu for OPRAmachine inquiries and support. So we also respond to, if you were to receive an OPRAmachine email, like a notification, we have a generic catch-all info@opramachine.com email address. So if you were to reply to one of those notification emails, it would go into my inbox actually. And we always try to do what we can to get users pointed in the right direction. So now, legal and moderation challenges that we've been facing with OPRAmachine. The biggest legal issue that we're going to be dealing with later in 2018, most likely, is there are a few problematic jurisdictions that are just outright refusing requests just for the sole reason that they're sent via OPRAmachine. This has been an issue that me and Jeff have been working on in the past few weeks. And I'm not going to say which particular jurisdictions it is right now, because we are starting to get into the territory of lawyers and litigation, and retainer agreements have been signed. So I'm limited in what I can say publicly until the legal paperwork is drafted and served. But it's very problematic, and we really think that it's not going to be upheld in court when we go and challenge it. I think, myself being as the administrator of this website, I feel that we have a responsibility to advocate for our users by doing this. So when we go to court, we're going to be, appearing there both on our own volition, but also for our users, of our site who are being affected by this. And Jeff, did you want to jump in real quick on that?
I want to interject one thing, which is I said that my one batch request was the 21 counties for election results. It's actually more accurate to say it was 20 counties, because one of those counties, I don't recall which one.
I think it was Passaic.
Okay. Said that you are not allowed to use OPRAmachine. You are not allowed to even send email. You are not allowed to fax. You must use our online proprietary system in order to submit OPRA requests. And coincidentally, you have to create an account to do so. And when I tried to do so, it just simply didn't work.
Yeah, so that's good, Jeff. Thanks for adding that. And again, this speaks to the difficulties associated with the OPRA and public records process. This is, again, in an ideal world, this is something that's supposed to be quickly enabling the dissemination of public information and allowing users to get good customer service from their local governments. And, I hate to be all negative. I will say I've had the opportunity to have a dialogue with some clerks that we've worked with from different agencies, and there are people out there that really do care about complying with the law and providing information. Unfortunately, it's these outliers in these particular jurisdictions that want to be nitpicky and discriminate against an otherwise valid written request. It's something that we're definitely going to have, and this shows you, without getting too aside here, this shows you that transparency is not something that's static. Transparency is something that there's always going to be that tug of war, that back and forth. If everybody just saw the recent New Jersey Supreme Court decision, Path versus Ocean County Prosecutor's Office, pertaining to the release of police dash cams. We just lost access to police dash cam footage. So that's something that we previously had under OPRA that we've now, that's been settled, that is now not public. So this is something, if you're really passionate about issues involving access to information and transparency, this is a debate, and the line on what's public and what's not public, there's a lot of forces on both sides trying to move it in one way or another. So it is definitely something that we try to follow. And obviously, we're pushing in the direction of more transparency, because when more people have access to the information, we think this is something that enables people to participate in our democracy, and it also enables journalists to do their job, and ultimately it comes down to informing public at the end of the day. So another concern of ours that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis is this failure to redact private information. Sometimes stuff just doesn't get redacted, and since the fall, there's been many times where I've began my day with a frantic phone call from a police department or from a municipality where they've released information that shouldn't have been released. This creates a whole new set of concerns. It's a concern that was previously there under the old way of doing OPRA. It's just, as Jeff mentioned, this is on a bigger scale and a bigger area of exposure here. And then again, because all these requests, our entire site is pretty much built off of user-generated content for public records requests, we have to deal with spam, concerns about misuse of the platform. So a lot of the other concerns that you might have with other larger social media or journalistic websites that have quite a large following. So the biggest issue has been this social security number problem that we've talked about. In all of these instances, we've quickly taken material down when it's been brought to our information. We actually have a policy where we would technically require written notice, but in many of the times I'll just look at it, and if it's something like a social security number, we don't want it, and we have mechanisms of removing it from our platform. But what we've came up with is there's a new solution that we're going to do. We're going to automatically redact social security numbers going forward when public entities fail to do this. We're going to be using a technology to recognize patterns of text called regular expressions. It's going to recognize the pattern of just a social security number. And what our software is going to do is it's going to go through all of these files and all of these requests on OPRAmachine, look for that social security number pattern, and then block it out so it's not there. So it's not going to work in 100% of scenarios, because it's not 100% foolproof. If it's something like a PDF where it's just an image and it's not properly OCR'd, then this text recognition might not necessarily work. But this feature is already being used on OPRAmachine today for email address redaction, because the big problem of spam on the internet these days, if your email address is public and out on a website, spammers will try to get a hold of that and send you all sorts of nasty things. We don't want that happening to requests. It still does happen to an extent. We try to minimize it. But anytime there's an email address that is detected by this, it just gets replaced with X's. So there's no, at least a minimization of concerns regarding spam. So this is something that we're testing currently on our local staging systems, and once we're confident that we have this stable to take to our live production server, we're going to announce that change. And going forward, hopefully what will happen whenever the next time one of these accidental disclosures takes place, we're hoping that this can kind of catch it before it ends up getting reported to us and brought to our attention. So this way, it will absolutely minimize any harm that might come to people that were the subject of those data breaches from the negligence of government employees. So looking at the big picture, what we've learned so far in this presentation, OPRAmachine, it allows you to both submit public records requests, and public records are published on our archive of documents and requests. There's benefit in reading both the requests themselves along that chain of correspondence to gain context about the documents and how they came to be publicized, as well as reading the content of those documents themselves. And again, this allows us, by publishing everything, to ensure that a larger number of people can be informed and benefit from OPRA without necessarily needing to do the work themselves and file a request and tie up the resources of the government agency. So we believe there's a value proposition that allows both sides of the public records equation to benefit here by simplifying and streamlining things for both government agencies and requesters. And again, this is speaking to OPRAmachine as a public records distribution and dissemination platform. We make it dead simple to share to Facebook, Twitter, social media, and any of these other platforms. And as a result of that, it makes it very simple for journalists to increase the quality of their news stories by linking to primary source documents and integrating them into their stories. And again, another interesting use case I wanted to touch on up top is our documents. As each document and request is sent into the system, it's able to be indexed and picked up by Google. So if somebody is just Googling around for documents or stuff related to their town, that's how actually a good portion of some of our new users are coming into the site, just by doing research relative to their topic of interest or their jurisdiction. And as a result of that, they're able to get pulled into OPRAmachine, and they might end up doing further research and registering for an account once they are onto the site. So there was a previous question about what will be happening if there's going to be a paid or a professional version. As it stands right now, OPRAmachine is not a commercial product or venture. I created the site because I wanted to simplify the process for myself, and I wanted to build a platform that I wanted to use for my own requests, and that's really what motivated me to create the thing in the first place. But OPRAmachine is continuing to grow into a service that is being used by journalists, by researchers, by all these different stakeholders across the state. And the time will be coming as we continue to scale and expand. We will be needing to buy more server equipment and stuff like that. So really, this is not really a commercial venture, but the professional tier, which we'll be launching at a later date where we'll have the details for that, that will be something that allows people to have more advanced features geared towards professionals, such as keeping requests private and not publicized right away, a lack of limitations on batch requests, and special customized dashboards and workflows for using OPRA on a professional basis. So this is not something that's able to be used right now. It's still in development. People can pre-register just to express their interest. But this is, again, going to be something we're going to be talking about more at a later date. We don't have a whole lot on OPRAmachine Pro at this time, but it will be something that's coming down the pike. So lastly, I want to talk about all of the different ways that people can make use of the data that OPRAmachine is warehousing in our database. We have something called an API, which is an application programming interface. This is something, if you are a developer, if you're a web developer, if you want to make an app, or even if you want to just integrate OPRAmachine with your local news website or your page, we're really going to push all these different ways people can build off of our platform. We're looking to collaborate with news organizations. We're looking to collaborate with developers and individuals, anybody that has something new they want to bring to the table. We have a platform of data that we are opening up through our API. We use industry standard data transfer methods such as JSON, JavaScript, object notation, RSS data feeds. And we also publish, I want to show everybody this page we have on GitHub. We are publishing a database in CSV and SQLite format database where we have an entire database in one giant spreadsheet that shows all OPRA requests that were ever filed through our service and then their current status. So using this database, somebody could build on top of it if they wanted to make a web scraper and download documents. There's all sorts of stuff people can do to build off of it. But this spreadsheet here will have all 2,300 requests in this one single file here. And we're just trying to have as many different avenues for people to make use of our data in a simple to use, attractive format. And we're going to be covering some of those endpoints now. So API data, it can be accessed on a broad or a granular level by county, by town, by public agency, even by individual. And there's a lot of different use cases for integrating this data and building on top of our platform further. So one example is we're plugged into our API on the OPRAmachine Twitter account. If you use a service like IFTTT, which is great for publishing things when certain conditions are met. So what this does, if you follow the OPRAmachine Twitter account, all it does is it pulls in our RSS feed. IFTTT checks it for whenever there's new content. And whenever it detects a new successful OPRA request, it uses that special custom RSS feed to generate a new tweet and put in all the variables right there. So that's why if you follow OPRAmachine on Twitter, every time there's a new successful OPRA request, we're able to automatically have that be tweeted out and generate that feed of data that way. So sometimes journalists will get leads for stories there, and other people will integrate those tweets elsewhere. This concept can be extended. Some individuals that run like local town Facebook pages or hyper local pages, if they have a page for one given municipality, they can set it to automatically publish OPRA requests that are sent just to their municipality or just for their particular search term if you're running something that's more topical. And again, you know, this gives us the opportunity to create opportunities for other third parties to integrate our data in order to create richer content for their audiences. So here's an example. This is from my personal website on gavinrozzi.com. I have a static website where I coded in some HTML partials to pull in OPRA request data. And I'm just going to show you on my personal website here. If you scroll down to the OPRA page here, this is code that I wrote that pulls in all of the JSON data for my personal OPRA request. And this page on my personal site will be updated with every single OPRA request that I file through OPRAmachine. So it's something on my site. So like if a town might want to do, if you were a borough website administrator, you might want to show a feed of requests just for your town on that website. And the same can be said if you were a journalist or local media that wanted to integrate that into your setup. So I'm going to just take another question real quick from Janet. What public authorities and agencies are missing? I see education and housing, but there are no health authorities. Thank you for your question. So I don't believe we may have health departments in, I'm not sure about health authorities, but we do have the New Jersey Department of Health. We have some county health departments. As far as agencies that are missing, we have a form on the website that people can go to on OPRAmachine.com. If they don't see the government agency on our site, it makes it really simple where they can go onto this form, fill in the details of the government agency that they want us to add to our service, and then we'll get notified and get an emailed notification about the agency they want us to add. All we need is their official email address to send the OPRA request to. That's all we need to get somebody added into our system. And we process those requests at least a few times a month. So if you have an idea, if you go on there and you look and your local health department or a particular agency that you're interested in sending a request to, if they are not on there, please see if you can find that email address for them to send OPRA requests to. And we'd be happy to get them up on the site, definitely. So again, you know, going back to the code that powers this, if you're a web developer, the actual code that I wrote to pull in our requests that we were just looking at on the rendered form of my page, it's just this simple little HTML partial. It pulls it in, it defines the variables, it gets the JSON, and then I range over it, and then I show the specific parts that I want to have as an HTML element, and obviously example.com would be replaced with OPRAmachine in the actual running code. But if you open up the slides back at home, this code is all linked to it from there if you are a web developer and you want to take a look at implementing this for yourself maybe. So finally, just wrapping things up, this slide presentation, if you're watching from home, all of these slides are open for public viewing on montclair.opramachine.com. That's where you can view this entire presentation again at your own pace. This webinar is being recorded. We're going to have more information up at OPRAmachine.com and our blog. I want to thank all of you for coming here today and attending our event. And with that, if we have any last questions from our audience, please feel free to chime in with those. If you're not comfortable asking your question here on the webinar, our contact information is up on the screen. If you want to email info@opramachine.com, give us 504-3636. 732-504-3636 is our number. And again, I would like to thank everybody for participating here today. And I hope to have more to share in the next few months. Thanks, Joe.
No problem. Thank you very much. Yeah, so again, I'm going to be posting this recording on our YouTube channel and on the Facebook channel, Facebook page as well, and I'll share it in the New Jersey News Commons group. If anybody has any questions for Gavin, obviously you have his information there. If you have questions for me or the center, if you'd like to find out about other trainings, you can go to centerforcooperativemedia.org, or you can email us at info@centerforcooperativemedia.org.